Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to part 2 about man-made ideologies, and in this video we're going to cover feminism and Red Pill. Red Pill is an ideology inspired by the Matrix movie, referring to becoming enlightened to the truth about reality, especially a truth that is difficult to accept or exposes disillusions. It focuses more on the intersexual sexual dynamics and sexual power dynamics of the more general male self-development. There are themes which we agree with the Red Pill, such as wisdom of patriarchy. This is something attributable in Islam. As men, we are meant to be the leaders in marriage and household, but don't act like a dictator. The Imam and scholars are responsible for the community, and the Caliph are men that serves as a leader of Islam. Attraction between men and women is not symmetrical. Whilst looks matter to both gender, the looks of a man is not as high up as a woman's looks. They defend the concept of masculinity and femininity, and they don't like simping, which is giving excess resources and time to women without any reciprocation. We agree with them that simping is wrong, and in Islam there is a reason why interactions between men and women are kept to a minimum. You only need to look at the state of relationships between men and women in Western countries where there is an imbalance. For any Muslim man who might say, well, what is the problem then? Well, look at some of the comments the representatives say. They will speak quite negatively against women with high body counts, but then on the other hand don't mind giving so-called top caliber men a free pass to sleep with women indiscriminately as a reward for attaining the things that they believe make a man high value, and can then get a virgin woman to marry when they want to settle down. This is hypocrisy. Firstly, zina is unacceptable regardless of gender, and as Surah An-Nur mentions, corrupt men are for corrupt women. Look at some of the vocal Muslim brothers who have spoken out against his ideology: Abu Taymiyyah, Ali Dawah, Muhammad Hijab, recent revert Matthew Hodgson, who now goes by the name Ibrahim, Gabriel al-Romani, and the Free Muslims. While sisters may not like the fact that he is Tate's friend, Satoru Shooter from his own experience said, Red Pill helped him understand the problems he faced, but it didn't provide the meaningful solution. Islam did that for him. We know that this has become a problem when Muhammad Hijab is having to call Red Pill Muslims an abomination, which should be a testament that we do not support this ideology. To my Muslim brothers, don't follow this stupid ideology, and if you haven't already consumed this ideology, turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I've seen articles with so-called Muslims that are claiming Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawah are promoting Red Pill. To those sisters, have some shame on you, as you are accusing them of something they haven't committed, especially when they reject this ideology. Just because there is truth we can accept from Red Pill does not mean we support the ideology in its entirety. Feminism is defined as the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It is the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. There is nothing wrong with Muslims standing up for women's rights, as one of the main missions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tasked Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was to ensure women at a time when they were treated poorly had their rights established, which we continue to uphold. We can sympathize with the feminist movement on a variety of things, such as women having bank accounts, inheritance, right to divorce, and many of the principles feminism has fought for the last 200 years. We can argue Islam first established 1400 years ago. But we do not identify nor advocate for feminism, as it is important we are promoting the rights of women as per Islam, as this is the moral framework we support and believe in. There are going to be Muslims that are going to ask, what is the problem with feminism? The answer is a lot. Well, the first thing to note is there are functional or practical differences that we have with feminism. For example, feminism asks for equal rights to inheritance, but the degree of inheritance passed down is subject to the decision of the family member, whereas in Islam there are a fixed share for women in the family. Secondly, feminism has been disingenuous to women and men. Some of the examples we will look at are as follows. The feminist movement being a major contribution to women being childless by 30. Feminism is so keen to hate on men they will market any lie, and they neglect men's problems. In Tanya Selvaratnam's book, The Big Lie, Motherhood, Feminism and the Reality of the Biological Clock, she explores many of the big lies feminism has made, one of which is that women can delay motherhood until women are ready, and if they are not able to get pregnant naturally, then science will make it happen for them. In reality, that's a load of crap. The studies show that women's ability to get pregnant alone starts to decline as they enter their 30s. Post 35 years old, it deteriorates further, not to mention these pregnancies are known as geriatric pregnancies, due to pregnant women over age 35 are more at risk for complications like miscarriage, congenital disorders, and high blood pressure, not to mention it increases the chance of the child having any genetic medical conditions. Then when it comes to methods such as IVF, the success rates are very low, but they also carry their own risks. There is a YouTube video of Helen Pluckert, a former feminist British author and cultural writer, where she explored the absurdity of feminist academia by submitting a paper claiming she has touted insights into male rape culture based on the inspection of 10,000 dog genitals. This was accepted and published by the feminist geography journal Gender, Place and Culture. It is clear these feminist academia will do anything to degrade men, contradicting the claim that feminism is a gender equality movement. An example of neglecting men is the falling standards in men's performance in education. Another ex-feminist noted when feminists at her time fought for important factors, and rightfully so, they were neglecting men's education. Fast Track Today, Institute of Family Studies, SISTA, and other organisations show that men are still falling behind in education across all levels. Thirdly, there are things we fundamentally disagree with feminism. To give two examples to demonstrate this, as per enlightenedwoman.org, third and fourth wave feminism have heralded casual sex, immodesty, pornography, and promiscuity as symbols of female empowerment. This is something haram for the Muslim law. If we refer back to the definition of having equal opportunities, a Muslim cannot be an imam in a mosque leading men or teenage boys in a prayer. There will never be a female caliph, and it is not permissible for a Muslim woman to join the armies. There is a limit to what jobs are available to women, so by default we do not even agree with equal opportunities to every single job. What Muslims also need to be aware is feminism has aligned themselves with Islamophobia. The author of The Brown Hijabi noted the following two things. They believe the main oppression Muslim women face in the world comes from Muslim men and Islam. They view Islam as holding Muslim women back and remove their autonomy. Both liberal feminism and Islamophobia use vague pinpointing of patriarchal culture to attack Islam and Muslims as sexist. Therefore, both end up weaponizing Muslim women as being oppressed by Muslim men and Islam to subsequently attack Muslim men and Islam in the name of so-called women's rights. Feminism has a track record with involving in Western imperialism. In the past, an overwhelming majority of Muslim women wore the hijab, but when the French and British were implementing their colonialist ideology on Muslim lands, particularly in countries such as Algeria and Egypt, they had an obsession with Muslim women and wanted to take them away from the faith. They could not effectively force their women to take off the hijab, so they got creative and framed the head veil as stemming from excessive jealousy and selfishness within men, to dominate over women who were subordinate. They framed the unveiling as removing the shackles of oppressive religious patriarchy. To do this, they brought doctors, missionaries, and feminists to spread lies about the hijab. Even more heinous was the forced slavery of women such as Monique Anisian, who were blackmailed to cooperate with colonial propaganda against their own people, display themselves as sex objects, and to be shown to the world how modern France was triumphing over the archaic nations of Islamic Africa. This unfortunately did work to a significant extent, with large numbers of the Muslim no longer wearing the head veil, and it is something that will take years to undo. We also see feminists trying to portray themselves as recognizing Islam as a feminist religion, but what they are doing is establishing a fake Kurdish alliance only to try to corrupt the Ummah in the following ways: to distort or completely reinterpret the Islamic teachings. For example, Asma Lamrabet, a female Moroccan Muslim scholar who identifies as a feminist, is trying to reclaim the right to reinterpret fundamental religious texts and condemn sexist and discriminatory religious interpretations. Many conservative Muslims accuse her of lacking the necessary theological competence to interpret the sacred text correctly, but she still seems to be hell-bent on reforming the religion from a feminist lens. In 2018, she had to resign from Morocco's Islamic League of Theologians after she defended equal inheritance, even though there is a set inheritance structure in Islam. Muslim women to sin. Examples include, but not limited to, the following: tabarruj, disobeying male guardian or protector, going to haram places and indulging in other sins such as nightclubs, alcohol, drugs, etc. Unfortunately, we have Muslim indoctrinating in feminism and subscribing to this garbage. I have an example from one Muslim, and I was shocked that sins were that bad. There appears to be evidence of her making a mockery of Allah's name. This is a reminder of just how damaging these man-made ideologies are, and to make sure that we never allow any one of our women in our families to end up like this. Negative effect on Muslim women. Sadia Khan, a psychologist, revealed in her line of work found Pakistani women that became more indoctrinated with feminism were cheating on their husbands, which is obviously a major sin.
A lot of Pakistani
Do you
girls cheating on their
think
husbands.
everyone was always cheating and now we just know about it?
No, I don't think so.
Like, do you think in our parents' generation everyone was cheating? It's kind of like
My
there's so many other
parent-
movements.
Maybe
where...
I'm from Kashmir, we're a bit different.
Okay.
We're just like, we don't know what cheating is. It's
Okay.
very like a rural environment.
You guys are in the mountains, just doing your
Yeah,
own
I just
thing.
think it's very common amongst the women now, more than ever before.
Why?
I think here's what it is in the typical Pakistani boy in London. He goes to work, comes back. As long as you're nice to his mum and food is ready and he has shisha on the weekends, he's pretty happy. He doesn't have that kind of pleasure-seeking side to him as much.
Yeah.
They're just not built like that. And they have very simple requests and they live as very simple. They have simple mentality. Be nice to my mom, have food, let's go for shisha. And maybe they'll play a few video games here and there. They're simple people. What's happening is the women are becoming more and more feminist and they're thinking, I don't want to be nice to your mom and I don't want to cook you food and I don't want to do that. And so what's happening is they're seeking relationships outside of the marriage.
Dismantling rules which they deem oppressive but is set within our religion. For example, Tunisia removed the rule that prevented Muslim women from marrying outside of faith, which was driven by liberal feminists. They want to manipulate men into becoming Dayoud, which is basically a man who has no protective jealousy and honour over his female family members. And finally, turning Muslim women into sex objects. If anyone watching is a follower of Ali Dawah, you may recall he reacted to a video of a Saudi woman on the Fresh and Fit podcast. This sister was born and raised in Saudi Arabia, went to the USA to study, ended up corrupted by that society and started doing OnlyFans content which she claimed made her feel empowered. Whilst brother Myron had been rightly called out for his actions for advocating liberal ideology and his other sins, being on his podcast made the sister realise the mistake she made and felt ashamed. She has since shut down her OnlyFans, but it's probable her pictures will resurface. She is not the only Muslim sister fallen to this. Across multiple countries there are Muslim women, albeit a tiny minority, doing sex work, and while some of it may be fake, this should be a warning to the ummah of the reach feminism can have thanks to technology. And it's not just sex work. There is an epidemic of the Muslimah becoming sexualized through other means such as beauty pageant, haram modeling, etc. I ask the brothers and sisters, what more evidence is needed for you to understand feminists do not have any respect for Islam? We can support and fight for women's rights without labeling ourselves as a feminist. In Islam, we fight for the rights of women as established in our religion, so being a Muslim is enough. For any Muslim that identifies as a feminist, now having the evidence in front of you, how can you identify with an ideology that is institutionally Islamophobic? Not to mention the hypocrisy of feminists who would criticize Iran for their physical force on women, which we oppose, yet they are silenced when France is blackmailing Muslim women with their education in order to get them to remove the headveils in abaya. Also, something which has been pointed out to me as a potential problem, any Muslims watching that are indulging in astrology, horoscopes, fortune telling, these are the acts of the ignorant and want to avoid full accountability. There is a notable hadith which categorizes this as witchcraft, which is one of the major sins. Not only has this belief been debunked multiple times, but there was a finding from a recent study conducted by a psychologist in Sweden and published in the March 2022 issue of the journal Personality and Individual Differences. They found those that believe in astrology, for example, were more likely to be narcissistic and have lower IQ levels. In conclusion, we do not identify, advocate, or integrate man-made ideologies into our way of life as Muslims because it is innovated by disbelievers. To integrate would be blasphemous, it would be distorting the religion, it has a negative impact on the ummah. Some are also anti-Islamophobic or opposes Islam. As explained before, whilst there are things we could agree with in principle with breakthrough and feminism in particular, ultimately there are fundamental differences as well as the reasons set above which render it impermissible to identify and advocate these ideologies. And that wraps up part 2 on man-made ideologies. May this hopefully guide the Ummah to combat these corporate ideologies. Also, I would like to ask everyone to keep our brothers and sisters in Morocco and Libya in your prayers given the recent earthquake and floods. I've also attached a link to the Islamic Relief where you can donate money to help our dear brothers and sisters. Jazakallah khair.